We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Porque soy perro y me desaparezco.
Now, back to our show.
Gobble fucking gobble. It's another episode of the Unofficial Commentators. Commentator. If you're wondering where Paki is, he decided to start Eric Ebron instead of whoever the hell else he had. He lost a matchup, so he killed himself. It's a Thanksgiving miracle. So you get me for the entirety of this episode. You're welcome. So without further ado, it's the Unofficial Commentators, Week 12. And here we go. All right, so let's cover some of our basic segments. We're going to start with talking about the League of Haters League. And for starters, it's customary that we mention the bye weeks. So only 2 teams on bye weeks. It's the second to last week of the fantasy regular season. It's the last week of bye weeks. Only 2 teams on bye this week, but it's a very important 2 teams. It's the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Rams. Wow, I'm still coming off that high of watching these 2 teams play yesterday. There could not have been a more perfect football game. I mean, it was everything. I can't even say it wasn't. It was everything. The game had defense. It had pass rushing. It had passing. It had scores aplenty. We ran the ball, threw the ball for 70 yards, kicked some field goals, missed some field goals, extra point. It was a thing. It was an event. Some people are calling it the best football game ever. Some people are calling it the best football game of the generation. Definitely must-see TV, the best football game of this year. And ESPN Monday Night Football ratings are never, mark my words, they're never going to be as high as this was. The best thing that could have happened to this game was that it didn't take place in Mexico. Man, what an absolute shootout. All right, well, since it was originally slated to be played in Mexico, it had to be rescheduled. Those teams were already scheduled to have a week off this week. So there you have it. Bye weeks. Going to be missing my man Pat Mahomes. No Kareem Hunt. No Tyreek Hill. No Jared Goff. None of the receivers. No Todd Gurley. Important week. Important absences in some of these matchups. All right. So the awards. The awards go to, first of all, the high score. I still don't have a name for it, but it went to Straight Outta Compton, and wouldn't you know it? Straight Outta Compton has, 6, 7 players now, all from the Los Angeles Rams who happened to win the game. It was a 50-plus point game, and everyone got a piece of it. He scored 167.72 fantasy points. Honestly, all things considered, it's not the highest total we've seen this year. We've seen 170 points put up by Hunt for the Wilder Cup, but still very impressive. 167 points is a lot of points. All right. The Sucks Dynasty Award. Woof. Feels good to take that burden off me already. Managing to score even less than me. I scored less than 60 points? I scored less than 60 points. This team scored less than 50 points. And who cares about the details of how this happened? Juju Jones only managed 47.60 points. Juju Jones, get the hell out of here. You're this week's Sucks Dynasty. All right. Tupela. Tupela goes to the Straight Outta Compton. Yes. They beat Game Pounds at Gordos by 84.18 points. Just to give you a point of reference, Gordos only scored 83.54 points. So Straight Outta Compton outscored him by more points than he scored. Point blank, period. All right. Then we have the next one is La Chepa. All right. So La Chepa, based on the original intention of why I decided to create this award, was the team who beat his opponent but would have lost to the majority of other teams because he won with the lowest score, the lowest winning score. So by rule, that goes to Guica. How this happened, what were the circumstances, doesn't matter. 99 points. He would have lost to another 9 teams had he played anyone else. Shitty would have lost to Juju Jones, and Juju Jones actually started the lineup. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. G, another one on the win column. And yeah, Juju Jones, you got the Sucks Dynasty, and Guika, you show up on our awards for something other than being the most pathetic team. You're actually La Chepa this week. But you're going to share that award this week. You're going to share with this team's bye week. This team's bye week, as astutely caught on by Gary, he actually won this week thanks to a defensive play that resulted in an interception for his team. Totally sealed the deal for your week's bye team. Your week's bye team, who we thought had no chance. We actually thought the Rogues would have won with just 4 players, like Juju Jones tried to do. That wasn't the case. Even at full strength, or at least at a full lineup, the Rogues weren't able to topple your team's bye week. And if you've been paying attention to anything I say on the show, which if you haven't, I don't really blame you, friend zone, motherfucking friend zone, I said they win every week by somehow just playing to the competition and just narrowly beating, just scoring enough to beat their competitor. Well, friend zone has a record currently of 7-4. They've won 3 in a row, and once again, they won by less than 7 points. That's just how they do it, man. Every single week, that's how they get by. And the best fantasy performer is a player that used to belong to my team, now belongs to your team's second bye week, or bless him, which is the original name he gave his team. Tyreek Hill scored 38.5 fantasy points. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for Blessum to win. Blessum did not get a win this week, and that is simply that. Here's a funny little number for you. Blessum in total scored 89.16 fantasy points. Tyreek Hill on his own had 38.5 points. You guys know how good I am at math, so I'm going to say that's about half the points. All right? I rounded up. Daryl, go fuck yourself. All right, so no more trades. Trade deadline is over. We're done with that. We're moving on. Waiver wire. Well, we've switched it, and now waiver wires come out on Instagram. So follow the Unofficial Commentators on Instagram if you want my opinions on who you should pick up on waivers. A lot of the people I suggested were picked up, so either they were going to be picked up anyway, or you guys are actually following my advice. So there you have it. This is a fun week, week 12, and I want to say that I'm a little sad that Paki couldn't be here, but fuck Paki. He's too big time for the show. He doesn't appreciate you fans, so he can go directly to hell since he already killed himself, and there's no redemption from that, so that's going to be that. All right. A lot of matchups this week. I think I have in my mind, just the way that everything is playing out, I have about 4 matchups of the week that we should be watching. That being said, it's anybody's game. So it looked like Juju Jones and Hunt for the Wilder Cup were running away with it. But 2 straight losses from Hunt for the Wilder Cup and Juju Jones botching his lineup, it made it anyone's ball game. And there's currently a 4-place tie. Points are going to determine who's first, second, third in the seedings. But there's a 4-place tie. 4 teams are currently at 8-3. We have 2 teams at 7-4, and then we have 2 teams at 6-5 who aren't totally out of it, but they have to win this week for this to even matter. That being said, let's talk about some matchups. Man, it's probably going to show up under me. Anyway, here we go. So the first matchup we're going to talk about, week 12, is going to be the much anticipated Commissioner Bowl. And if Paki was here, he'd be lying to you and he's going to tell you about how he's going to win. But quite frankly, he has no chance. He's been coasting for the majority of this year on the strength of Pat Mahomes. And guess what? I already mentioned Pat Mahomes will not be playing this week. Plenty of available quarterbacks on the waiver wire. So if you're interested, again, follow at Unofficial Commentators on Instagram. and I will be telling you who you should be picking up to fill in those big shoes of Patrick Mahomes. All right. Well, I can tell you that my team is stacked, and we have some pretty favorable matchups. So top to bottom, Andrew Luck against Miami. Andrew Luck has been beasting in the last shit. I want to say, well, I don't have to even guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. 7 games in a row in which Andrew Luck scores more than 21 fantasy points. And I don't see why this game against Miami should be any different. Barring some injury or some miraculous, I don't know what could possibly detain Andrew Luck at this point. He is on an absolute roll. His team has won 4 in a row. He is going to stomp all over Miami. So I'm pretty much starting this week off with 20 points already in the bank. Then I have Antonio Brown against Denver. The Pittsburgh defense, even when they're bad, they're still good. And I want to steal a line from Joel Vasquez at Papa de Daphne, who said, Antonio Brown catches balls that aren't even meant for him. There was a ball that was thrown just in the air, I guess to avoid some kind of sack by Ben Roethlisberger. And out of nowhere, it seemed like teleportation. Antonio Brown shows up exactly where the ball lands, takes it to the house. All right, Corey Davis, he's totally hit or miss. He's a Monday Night Football, whatever with him. All right, Saquon Barkley, after putting up 34.20 fantasy points, the second highest score in all of fantasy, he's going up against a team who he torched for his career high in fantasy points, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have looked like utter shit for their last 2-3 games, I want to say. It's bad. It's a dumpster fire out in Philadelphia right now. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. I wouldn't want to be one of their fans. And the Giants are actually trending upwards. They won 2 in a row. This is the chance. They are in striking distance. Saquon Barkley, have yourself a day. Joe Mixon against Cleveland. He should score some points. They're going to stay in Ohio for the totality of this game. I know that much is said about Cleveland's defense, but this is a must-win game for Cincinnati. And Hugh Jackson, who's hired as some kind of special advisor to the offense or something or other to that effect, well, he's going to be in attendance. So win 1 for Hugh. All right, CJ Uzomwa, I start him because you really have no option at tight end. Another tight end went down this week for the remainder of the year. O.J. Howard, who was a big contributor in fantasy. Maybe if Njoku is still unknown in this league in particular, I know he's owned in most other leagues, but if he's unknown in this league, if he's still up for the waiver wire, I might get lucky. I doubt it. I got waiver pick number 12. That's neither here nor there. Alan Humphries, he's good for whatever he's good for. I'd rather have his points, whatever those are, than a 0. All right. Shit, I talked about the whole team. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to limit these, but I'm sorry if I came off a little bit overzealous. You're going to say, damn, you talked about your entire team. Nobody cares. Talk about ours. My bad, guys, but all of these matchups are really, really favorable. If you are a fantasy owner of any team and you have these players, you absolutely want to start them. They are no-brainers. All right. On the side of Paki's team, Daphne Culo-Ancho. All right, Allen Robinson has regressed. He hasn't had the major games that we have seen from him on occasion. But that should change because, like we said before, Detroit can't stop anybody. They won on a fluke play where basically can't even stop themselves. But if it's up to them, they're not stopping anyone. Emmanuel Sanders, maybe this is when he rights the ship. He hasn't looked great as of late. We expected him to fall into the role of a number 1 receiver with the departure of Demaryius Thomas, and that was not the case. Pre-Demaryius Thomas, he was scoring in the double digits. He had a 21 and a 24-point fantasy game before Thomas left, and now Thomas leaves, and he's giving you 6, 7, and 8, although one of those games was while Demaryius Thomas was still there. David Johnson, you start him, he's a no-brainer, but he's not facing a cupcake defense. The Los Angeles Chargers are tough. Anything else after that, Josh Adams, Eric Ebron, I'm surprised that after the choice words that Paki had for me, that he's still going to start Eric Ebron. Maybe he flips this and he starts Jared Cook, but Jared Cook does not have a good matchup. So I understand if you're going to go with Ebron. Maybe this is one of those things where Ebron has a good game, a bad game, good game, bad game, and you just have to start him. But by the way, Paki, I did not tell you to start Eric Ebron. I told you if you're not going to start him, you might as well have traded him when he had some fantasy value. Now you want to start him after you've won a few games, after he's totally untradeable, and then you want to blame it on me? Well, you haven't really blamed it on me. You said that you thought I made a good point and therefore you started him. Well, I can't take blame for that one. That's totally on you. So, by the way, in this week's matchup, I'm going to pick Bad Luck Dynasty to beat Daphne Culo Ancho. All right, the next matchup, the number 8 Gotham City Rogues, currently at 6-5, versus the number 2 Gin and Drews at 8-3, winner of 4 in a row. Gotham City Rogues lost theirs. Gotham City Rogues would have been in such a much more comfortable, more favorable position, but he lost a really, really tight game, and now he has to go balls to the wall against Gin and Drews. Now, the good news for the Gotham City Rogues is they're going to get back Nick Chubb for whatever that's worth. Melvin Gordon is going up against Arizona. This is a cupcake matchup if I've ever seen one. T.Y. Hilton just balled out last week. He should do a little more of the same against Miami. But be careful, Miami's secondary is pretty tough. Tyler Boyd against Cleveland. I'm not sold on Tyler Boyd, but you don't have a better option. And you're going to go with Dak Prescott. I don't blame you. I mean, of the available options, I guess he's one of the best. Projecting 16 fantasy points, you had to give up Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure that I'm not picking up Andy Dalton again if he's available, and he is in our league, who's going up against Cleveland. You probably have better fantasy options than Dak Prescott. But I guess Dak Prescott can be counted on for, he's averaging close to 13 fantasy points. He's already played Washington this year. In a loss, he gave you 18 fantasy points. So this may or may not be your best option. I guess it shouldn't matter. Off the strength of T.Y. Hilton, Melvin Gordon, and hell, even Zach Ertz and Nick Chubb. This is your strength. This is how you're going to win. Quarterbacks don't win you your matchups week to week. A team that does rely on their matchup heavily at quarterback week to week is Gin and Drews. Gin and Drews is going to, of course, start Drew Brees. Drew Brees playing the primetime game at home versus Atlanta. He's playing at the Dome. New Orleans is totally cooking. Atlanta's defense has looked about as worse as the defense could look in the NFL. Look for Drew Brees to ball out, projecting 23 fantasy points. I think this might be too low. After the stomping they gave Philadelphia, I'm thinking Drew Brees might get into the 30s. Adam Thielen, this is a dude, no-brainer. You got him, you start him. I'm not afraid of the Green Bay Packers defense. By the way, they're playing the Sunday night game. Willie Snead, I guess you have no better option. You start Willie Snead. I mean, he's good for what he's good for. He's going to get you some catches. But I liked him a lot more when he was receiving for Joe Flacco. If any of you saw the game of the Baltimore Ravens when it was Lamar Jackson under center, good God, this guy was afraid to throw. 115 rushing yards, and this is because he's not throwing. Is he afraid? I don't know. Did he choke in a big moment? I don't know. Did he do what he had to do situationally to win? Maybe. But he's not throwing, and I'm not feeling any of the receivers in Baltimore. But they do have a really good matchup against the Raiders. Mark Ingram, of course, you start him. I don't like Giovanni Bernard. But you don't have Todd Gurley this week. And this, oh man, in a must-win week when you're so close. Right now, you are the second team. Sorry. Donnie, you are the second seed. You need to protect this second seed, and it's going to come at the least opportune time. I mean, enjoy it while you're there, but without Todd Gurley, it's going to be hard for you to win this one. Like I said, off the strength of some of these skill players in Gotham City Rogues, I'm going to go with the Rogues this week. All right. So next matchup. Woof. This is going to be an interesting one. Not because it has any kind of playoff implications. Not that it really matters. Nobody is going to shift in either direction. But this week might determine who the worst team in fantasy is. And bless them, you thought you were capped out at 2 weeks. This might be a week where you get a win. I made the mistake of thinking that these teams had already faced each other. But here we go. So it's number 12, Blossom, currently at 2-9, loser of 3 in a row, versus number 14, El Perro del Llano, also at 2-9. They won their last game, albeit by a technical error. Well, whatever. These are well, what's the saying? There's a reason why we play the game. This is why we play the game, because people sometimes forget. They do goofy shit like putting everyone on their bench, and then they come around and forget to put in their starters, and no lineup means you lose. All right. So who do we have for each one of these teams? We have Ben Roethlisberger playing in the high altitude of Denver. Road Ben. Road Ben was looking pretty shaky last week against Jacksonville. Now he has to travel, basically across country to Colorado to that high altitude, and then he's going to have to play Denver. While Denver's front is a little scary, Ben Roethlisberger has a way of making things happen. Even in a game where he absolutely stunk in the first half, he salvaged the rest of his day with 20 fantasy points, rushing for a touchdown. So you'll get your points from Ben is what I'm trying to say. Jarvis Landry, thank God that you're playing in a PPR league because he'll get a million catches. All right, this is where it gets a little tough for Blessom. So you had all these same players last week, right? No, actually, you didn't have large Jarvis Landry, but you're not going to have Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill basically scored half of your points last week, so that's a really big loss. You try to replace him with Nelson Aguilar. I don't think it's enough. Tyreek Cohen and Jordan Howard, they're going to be playing against Detroit. That's a defense that's exploitable. Now, here's a player who is a borderline player, fringe player, someone you should keep an eye on if you're a fantasy owner in any league, not just the League of Haters. And that player is Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed has had his best games as an NFL player with Colt McCoy as his quarterback. And, man, I don't want to say the word thanks. It's not thanks to, but unfortunately, due to a season-ending and potentially career-ending injury to Alex Smith, Colt McCoy is now the starting quarterback of the Washington Redskins. FYI, if you're keeping score at home, Mark Sanchez was brought on to be a starter because they absolutely had no one else. There was no backup. There was not even a thought that something like this could happen to Alex Smith. Man, I hope he gets well soon because that injury looked awful. Whew. All right. G is going to be starting Mr. Trubisky. Mr. Trubisky is a really dependable. I said last week that he was probably game-per-game average one of the best quarterbacks in all of fantasy football. Mitchell Trubisky, as he likes to be called, is going to be playing against Detroit, a totally exploitable offense. They're playing on Thanksgiving, and am I correct in saying this? There's a thought out there that while Detroit plays every single Thanksgiving, they have a less than positive record for Thanksgiving games. So this is a matchup that's exploitable. Amari Cooper and Golden Tate. Got him. You start him. Golden Tate still hasn't figured out his place in the offense of the Philadelphia Eagles. Since being traded, he's giving you 2.9 and 7.5 fantasy points. How the mighty have fallen, I guess I want to say. But where there's a will, there's a way. They got to find some ways to get more points for Golden Tate. Adam Jones. Adam Jones has been freed in Green Bay. They're finally using their running back. It's about time they get a young running back that they can get behind. Not since the rookie or maybe the second year of Eddie Lacy have they actually had a consistent running game. It's nice to see that in Aaron Jones. Dalvin Cook, got him, start him. Everything after that is just kind of fill in. It's whatever you had. and your bench is downright terrible. I don't see anything there that you would start in place of what you already have, so I guess that's what you're going to go with. So that's going to be what it's going to be. I think that outside of Trubisky probably having a better matchup and just more opportunities, and you know what? I kind of like your running back options there. Oh, shit. Wow. Goodness gracious. This is making me think. And in a totally insignificant game, I'm giving this way too much thought. And you know what? I'm going to go with Omar for a number of reasons. First of all, I can't cheer for Guica. Fuck you, Guica. Second of all, I mean, Omar's my guy. We've gone back and forth for a really long time, but he's my guy. And shit, I just can't see you losing 4 in a row. So get this W, my man. Win it for me. And I should have picked Guica if I believed in the what do you guys call it? The unofficial commentators curse, the jinx, whatever the terminology it is that we're using for. All right, here is another very, very interesting matchup. All right, so motherfucking Friend Zone is currently in 6th place, so that puts him in the playoffs. He's 7-4. He's won 3 in a row, albeit by less than a combined 20 points. And he's playing against the number 1 overall team, Hunt for the Wilder Cup, in that logjam tie of 8-3. Has dropped 2 in a row. Some people believe that I am the owner of Hunt for the Wilder Cup, so they would say that I basically beat myself. Pause. All right. So what do we have this week? What do these teams potentially look like? All right. Well, for starters, motherfucking Friend Zone is going to start Matt Ryan against New Orleans. New Orleans is a really good defense. It's going to be a shootout. The thing is, if we learned anything from last week with Carson Wentz, we expected that to be a shootout. Carson Wentz is a good quarterback, but that defense has really stepped it up. They were pounding the pocket. I don't think that's a phrase I've ever heard before. I might have just made it up. Maybe, maybe not. But New Orleans was pounding the pocket against Philadelphia. I don't see why it should be any different against Matt Ryan. Honestly, Atlanta has nothing to play for except for getting Julio Jones a few more touchdowns before the year is over. Alshon Jeffrey has been looking terrible. But against the Giants, he might just get enough points to make his day viable, solid. Stephon Diggs somehow finds a ways to always be relevant. Stephon Diggs had 22 points in his last game. What's going on here? He didn't play against. He had 20. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here. He had 25 points against Chicago. In a losing effort, this is when it didn't matter. A lot of that was junk time, but 25 points. That was coming off a bye week, and before that, he didn't play because he had a slight injury. And then after that, he had another 22 fantasy points. Now, here's an interesting fact. In the last 4 games for the Vikings, the games in which Stephon Diggs scores over 20 points, fantasy, those are losses. So I expect that they're going to be in the mix. Aaron Rodgers always finds a way to keep his team in it. He doesn't ever get like totally blown out or decimated. So if they're going tit for tat, I don't think that there's going to be an opportunity for Stephon Diggs garbage points. So he's going to have to do it when it counts, and that hasn't proven to be the case over his last 4 games that he's played with the Vikings. So let's see how that plays out. Ezekiel Elliott, absolute beast, absolute great matchup. He's projecting 20 fantasy points, and it's probably based on usage. They use him a lot. He's very durable. He can break tackles. But let's not forget that Washington is one of the tougher matchups. Washington has given up the 11th fewest fantasy points to running backs. So in reality, they're just one position out of the top 10 in running back defense. So This projected point total, it may just be out the fact that they use him a whole heck of a ton. Playing in the afternoon game on Thanksgiving. So I've said it before, Magic happens on Thursday. Alex Collins, I don't like it. It seems like another young running back is now coming up in Baltimore. Buck Allen took a step back. Kenneth Dixon is back or eligible to return from IR. I don't like Alex Collins. If he doesn't score a touchdown, then this is totally fruitless. This is weird, see, because you're expecting the Baltimore Ravens to win the game against the Oakland Raiders, right? That's the expectation, at least. They won their last game. They found a way to do it. But I'm not seeing, at least, any way or any standout fantasy performer. Everyone's fantasy projection is lower now with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, even in a matchup where all of these numbers should be skyrocketing. Kyle Rudolph, you have him, you start him. There really are very few possibilities at tight end. Latavius Murray, Dalvin Cook is back. He's all but droppable. Jordy Nelson is nursing an injury, so I don't see anyone there in your bench who you can start, but you have to find a solution at flex. Might that solution be Ricky Seals-Jones? I don't think so. So, I don't know. Maybe you scrounge the waiver wire. Maybe you go with Latavius Murray and hope for the best. Maybe he finds a way to fall into the end zone and it's all worth it. All right, on the side of Hunt for the Wilder Cup. You jerk. It didn't play off. You did your little thing where you don't start a defensive player to last minute. You pick him up. You play this intimidation tactic. It didn't work. I wasn't scared. You have been owned. All right, so right now seeing Russell Wilson against Carolina. Honestly, I think that may be a better option to start Russell Wilson against Carolina. You have Tom Brady playing on the road against the Jets. He came off a bye week, so there is a chance. There's a chance that he's rested, he's better. They come up with a scheme to score 30 points early, but then after that, they're basically going to coast. While you know that Russell Wilson is going to be always in it to the end, playing to the final pass. So I know you do that thing where you troll us and you put in a fake lineup only to replace him last minute. But honestly, in this situation, despite this projection, I think I'm going to go with Russell Wilson over Tom Brady. So if anyone else has this conundrum, if you are a fantasy owner and you have to decide between Russell Wilson and Tom Brady, in my personal ranking, which may count for whatever it may count for, I am starting Russell Wilson over Tom Brady. Michael Thomas, no-brainer. There's no one in Atlanta who is close to stopping this guy, and he's playing at home. Michael Thomas, look for him to beast. Keenan Allen finds his way into the end zone one more time last week. Love Keenan Allen. Despite whatever may happen in Los Angeles, Keenan Allen is the go-to guy, Mr. Dependable. He scored over 15 points in his last three matchups, and he's going up against Arizona. This should be no different. Leonard Fournette, wow. How the hell you managed to trade late in season and land Leonard Fournette is beyond me. And you had a couple of ups and downs last week, but Leonard Fournette is not the guy. Since coming back from injury, Leonard Fournette has been a beast. He has not missed a step. He's provided you 25 and 21 fantasy points. He goes up against Buffalo, who's a pathetic defense. So you got him, you start him. Leonard Fournette, no-brainer. Adrian Peterson, of course. You don't have anyone on your bench I would start ahead of him. Kareem Hunt is on a bye. You'll probably replace him with James White. You're going to get back Julius Edelman. This team is going to round out. You know what? This is a must-win game for Friendzone to keep pace. He's won 3 in a row. Wilder Cup has lost 2 in a row. But I like the matchups that Wilder Cup is going to play or is going to have. In this case, his 3 main skill guys, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, and Leonard Fournette. If you even want to throw Adrian Peterson in that mix, they're all going up against really cupcake matchups, if I'm allowed to say that. So, Wilder Cup to win this week. Sorry, Chef. That's just how I feel, bro. It was a good run. There's still, it'll just set you up for an absolute must-win for your last game. So take this as a lesson. Come back stronger next time. All right, Straight Outta Gotham. Straight Outta Gotham is currently your third ranked team. They are 8-3, winner of 4 in a row. They're going up against Juju Jones, who took a precipitous fall. They lost a ton of points by not starting their lineup. Juju Jones, also 8-3. They lost their last game. This is going to be a really tough game for Gary. So, I believe it was week 9 where I knew that I was punting. I knew that there was no chance I was going to win that one because just about everyone on my team, anyone that mattered at least, was on bye week on week 9 for me. Then we had last week where it was Hunt for the Wilder Cup, who was having to plug in a bunch of gaps with the Patriots on a bye. And now the dreaded day, the day that Gary has been waiting for, not with any kind of anticipation, I would assume, would come, and it finally did. Here he is. So, the bye week of the Los Angeles Rams. That means no Goss, no Brandon Cooks, no Robert Woods. Do you still have a kicker? Yes. No Zerline, no kicker. You don't have Littleton. You don't have Johnson, the safety. You're going to have to fill in a lot of gaps this week. And you may also have to give up some players this week in order to make a full roster. And you're going to need a full roster because Juju Jones is not playing any games with you this week. So I've already mentioned all of the players that Gary will not have. I'm sure that this lineup that I'm looking at will not be his final lineup. Most reliable players to watch here are going to be Christian McCaffrey and Sony Michel. Rob Gronkowski, it's about time he bounces back. Maybe he gets some in the game after his bye week. And Philip Lindsay, I like Philip Lindsay a lot. Philip Lindsay can run. He finds gaps. He hits them really hard. Philip Lindsay just ran all over the Chargers. Only 79 yards on the ground, but 2 touchdowns, and one of them was an extra long touchdown, I want to say, rather. Philip Lindsay, player to watch going forward. I think that if Denver decides to invest in Philip Lindsay and move on from the Royce Freeman experiment, Philip Lindsay may be a player who makes the top 10 ranking in running backs for next year. He might not be there already only because he still split touches, but if you totally commit to Philip Lindsay for next year, he could be a guy. He could be a top 10 guy. All right. So I know that Juju Jones is hoping to see what happens. He does have the number 1 overall waiver wire selection. I will be talking about who are the running backs you want to watch, but that's the spot he needs to fill. Juju Jones basically has a full team. He's only absent a running back because of injury, not even bye week. So who do we have? Who do we start? What are we doing? I think the way that your lineup looks right now is basically the lineup I would start. So you have Cam Newton, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, and Marlon Mack. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you got him, you start all these guys. Greg Kittle emerging as a viable option in San Francisco, going against Tampa Bay. Good Lord, San Francisco versus Tampa Bay is like watching Blessum play against El Perro del Llano. Juju Smith-Schuster made your lineup. Wise choice, I want to say. He made him as a flex. He's going up against Denver. There is a chance that Chris Harris is going to be focused on Antonio Brown, so maybe Juju Smith-Schuster has the opportunity to break and go for the end zone. Love your kicker, Justin Tucker, the most reliable kicker in football. You have some options out of these players. There's a lot of dead weight here. You have Mike Davis. You have T.J. Yeldon, and you have Carlos Hyde. Basically, T.J. Yeldon and Carlos Hyde, after Leonard Fournette came back, they're worthless. And I think from here on out, they are going to be what they are. I mean, they're going to be backups. You can pretty much drop them. I don't think that from this point forward, Leonard Fournette is going to miss any more time. There's always a possibility of an injury, but I think that's how Leonard Fournette works, right? He takes off a good 6-7 games in season, and he plays it out to the end of the year. even though I don't think Jacksonville has much to play for the rest of the year, except for maybe some pride and for not playing for stats. If you're wondering, I'm going to go with Juju Jones in this one. That team is solid, and it's just an uphill battle for Straight Outta Gotham this week. Number 13, your team's bye week is at 2-9. They won their last game miraculously, playing against number 5, El Papá de Daphne, currently at 4-7, winner of 5 in a row. This is a really impressive winning streak. 5 in a row is no laughing matter. I think Yahoo even recognizes you. They give you a trophy. You might want to check your trophy case, Papá de Daphne, and see what's going on there. It's like I never get tired of shitting all over your team's bye week. Basically, you got Kirk Cousins, you got Odell Beckham Jr., and Deion Lewis. They're projecting him for double-digit scoring. I don't see it. Houston is a really tough defense. They're really strong up front. If you somehow manage to get past the pass rushers and the D tackles, then whatever. You know, you have as good a chance as anyone else. Again, this is one of those options that I think they give him this projection based on usage more than matchup. He did not look good in his last matchup against Indianapolis, who coming into the year I didn't think had a great defense. Only 3.7 fantasy points. I'm not buying this projection at all. So basically, if you're going to win this week, bye week, you have to do it based on whatever Kirk Cousins and Odell Beckham Jr. are going to afford you. I don't think that's much. And wow, this is interesting. I know that they're replaceable, but your kicker and your 3 defensive players are all on bye. It's a rare occasion when something like this happens. So really weird. Don't know how that's going to happen. Isaiah Crowell was on a bye week last week. He's losing time to Elijah McGuire on the Jets, but I still think he's a better option than Royce Freeman at this particular point in time. It just seems like they're more committed to Lindsey, who I talked a lot about when I was talking about the last matchup. Deshaun Watson, he may not be the fanciest passer. He's not giving you the most yards with his arm, but he's doing a lot of it on the ground, and he's dependable. Week after week, he gives you points. Wasn't great against Washington last week, but he didn't need to be. They still won. Against Tennessee, another really stout defense. Playing the Monday night game, all eyes are going to be on Deshaun Watson. The only problem with Deshaun Watson, if you are an owner who has this option or this decision to make, is that Deshaun Watson is playing that Monday Night Football. Mariota, there's a chance that he may be out. I heard that he had suffered a stinger in his last game. So if you're down at all, which I doubt in this matchup, but if you're down, if you're playing in another league and Deshaun Watson's your guy, if you're down and this projection doesn't pan out for you because, again, Tennessee is a really good defense, you will have no other option. So you either commit to one of the quarterbacks that's either playing on Thanksgiving or playing on Sunday and just, pick your spots there and, leave it to luck, or you hope that you're up by enough where it doesn't matter what Deshaun Watson does for you on Monday night. All right, I have Mike Evans, James Conner, and Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman has emerged as the number 1 back in Atlanta, displacing Ito Smith, who was good for a couple of touchdowns way back when. And Tyreek, is it Tyreek? I'm sorry, I may be misplacing his name. It's Tyrell, actually. Tyrell Williams on the Chargers. He's the number 1 option. Jesus, when I do this show by myself, I realize how much you actually have to talk, and this is quite tiring. All right, so big absence there with Travis Kelce being out. You're going to replace him most likely with Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate had a very decent connection with Jameis Winston last year. Jameis Winston is going to be the starter for this game, and you have no O.J. Howard. So at least you have the option of replacing someone who is going to be out this week. You have Austin Eckler, and you also have Josh Gordon. So you have a couple of options there who you can put in your flex spot. I'm not even sure about this name, Sutton. I think he may have broken out for, well, he's pretty dependable if you're looking to not get a zero. He gets you anywhere between 7 to 9 fantasy points just about every week. I rather take Cortland Sutton for the 7 to 9 than a couple of zeros, which has been the story of my fantasy season. I always get a zero somehow. The week that I don't get a zero, like this week, then I win. So kudos to me. I somehow found a way to make this about me again. But it's just I'm having to fill time, and I want to give these teams ample attention, but I don't really see a way in which your team's bye week is going to overtake El Papá de Daphne. El Papá de Daphne is going to make it 6 in a row this week. All right. Game Pounds at Gordos is currently at 5-6. There is a slight chance that he could potentially end the season with a winning record. There's a chance, albeit a long shot, that he still slides in to a spot in the fantasy playoffs. With that being said, he's dumped 4 games in a row. The interesting part here is he's playing against a 4-7 team, number 11 overall, Bruised Wayne, the team owned by Cousin Juan, who's also dropped 4 in a row. I think, honestly, that Gordos has more to win or more to lose, however that phrase applies there, than Wayne does. I don't think that even if Wayne wins out for the remainder of this season, that 6-7 is going to be enough to get him into the playoffs. I mean, some team would have to have a miraculous collapse, and then he would have to win the battle of points to somehow still get in. Those teams that could potentially collapse are Daphne Culo Ancho and the Gotham City Rogues. 2 teams, by the way, that are affiliated with the Unofficial Commentators. Curse? Maybe. All right, so Game Pounds at Gordo. Game Pounds at Gordo has to be furious. He wasn't even close to winning, but last week Carson Wentz gave you 0.84 fantasy points. Depending on the format, I've seen teams that posted that they got negative points from Carson Wentz. So, man, it is an uphill battle. He is going up against the Giants. They're not a scary defense. This is the bounce back game that Carson Wentz needs. So you'll get your points there. Christian Kirk looked pretty good last week. No doubt about it. Against the Raiders, he looked pretty good, even in a loss. But this is not the Raiders. He's going up against the Chargers. Chargers are a really tough team. On this particular team, you don't have a better option except for maybe if you want to start John Brown instead on your at your starting receiver instead of your flex. But here's the example that I gave before. John Brown is now at 7.34 fantasy points projection. Now, this is normal for John Brown. He usually averages projections around the 7 to high 8s. And often he exceeds those numbers. But everyone, now that Lamar Jackson is the quarterback, is projected for 7 fantasy points. It's amazing. Evan Ingram, great talent, just doesn't get the usage. He was a beast, a must-own player last year when basically the Giants lost all of their receivers. But Evan Ingram is he's not getting enough touches to matter. Again, this is a year in which you don't have a better option, so you start him. Carson Wentz, this is interesting. You still have Aaron Rodgers on your team. I don't think this is the team you want to go with. Carson Wentz against the Giants, better matchup, but Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. You got to be starting him. You pick Aaron Rodgers way too high to start Wentz ahead of him. And I know that Rodgers wasn't off last week, so what the hell? I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. Okay. Sterling Shepard might find his way into the end zone. That's the only way you salvage him. Alvin Kamara, he destroyed. He ate up Atlanta the first time he played them. This should be no different. He didn't score a touchdown on them, but surprisingly, even with no touchdown, he still got 26 fantasy points. So he must have got a bulk of yards last time he played against Atlanta. This game is going to be at home. Expect Alvin Kamara to give you fantasy points aplenty. Capri Bibbs, nothing to write home about. Who's on your bench, who you can start in place of Capri Bibbs? Ugh. Doesn't look good for you. That might be your best option. Shit. I'm saddened by the fact that that might be your best option. Bruce Wayne. Phillip Rivers is your best option at fantasy quarterback, so you start him. He's going up against Arizona. I'm not scared of that defense. They lost a game that they had no business losing last week, so this is going to be a bounce-back game for Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. Deshaun Jackson against San Francisco. It's a juicy matchup, so I understand why you would start him, but Deshaun Jackson, he left the game briefly last week. They're playing at home against San Francisco, expecting rain. And it's Jameis Winston who doesn't use or doesn't know how to use Deshaun Jackson. So if I'm an owner of Deshaun Jackson, whether you're Bruce Wayne, Cousin Juan, or any other fantasy owner, if you got Deshaun Jackson, you don't start him. That's my opinion. If you're in the particular situation that Cousin Juan is in, you can start DeAndre Hopkins and Demaryius Thomas, both receivers for the Texans that are going to be playing Monday night. Another interesting scenario, just like I said before, with Deshaun Watson, except for the fact that Deshaun Watson is almost a guarantee because he's always going to touch the ball, right? Now, wow, que galleta le dieron Undertaker, right? Anyway, you got him. You pretty much have to start him, but it's a Monday night game, so if you're down by a lot, you're basically putting all your eggs in that one basket. Theo Riddick, he's projecting a ton of fantasy points against Chicago, which I don't know if I'm totally buying. Chicago is a really good defense. They are playing on Thursday, so he's playing on a short week. Kerryon Johnson is doubtful because he got injured and he's playing on a short week. So Theo Riddick, again, projecting many points because of usage or opportunity, but I don't like this matchup. Austin Hooper, you decided to move on from Njoku, so you're all in on Austin Hooper. And this is interesting. You have Kiki Kuti. So I might actually go all in and say, shit, I'm going to get every single yard that comes through the air in that game against Tennessee and put in all Houston receivers. The only problem with that is Tennessee is a really good defense. So it's a scary proposition, but shit, I mean, at this point, you're playing with house money. I would gamble. I would do that. AJ Green is projecting 13.95 fantasy points. If AJ Green, if you get the heads up that he's going to make it to the field and you own AJ Green, you start him. But last I heard, AJ Green wasn't supposed to come back until December. So, again, like I said, Cousin Juan, you're playing with house money. It's really up to you. I think that Gordos has to win this game. He's closer to being in the playoffs. And Cousin Juan has a lot riding on whatever happens with Houston, who is not in a great matchup against Tennessee. So, unfortunately, on this one, I'm going to go with game pounds at Gordos. So there, someone has to break their losing streak, and it's going to be what it's going to be. I had thought that I would make this show a lot shorter, that I wasn't going to be speaking as much, but I got excited. What can I say? I'm excited because I saw a great football game yesterday. I'm excited because I'm looking forward to breaking my diet and just going bananas on the Thanksgiving feast, although I don't expect to have any bananas. And just aside from that, just shit, like 2 whole days from 12 to practically midnight of football in 1 week. Sign me up for that. Not to mention no teams are going to be playing basketball on Thanksgiving, which means that every team is going to play on Thursday, and then every team is coming back on Friday. I love it. It's going to be Sports-a-Palooza in my household. You know what? I'm going to end the show here because I got to get ready. I got to get some rest to prepare to watch me some sports. I'm going to go watch Fantastic Beast, The Crimes of Grindelwald tomorrow. If you're interested in my movie reviews, I'll talk about it on Instagram like I used to do before. I'll probably mention it at some point again here next week. Next week, I have an open casting for a co-host in the Unofficial Commentators. I didn't miss Paki. This is probably the best, going to be the best, most watched show of the year. But all things considered, it is a toll on my voice. So, open casting to the Unofficial Commentators. Go to the comments, suggest who you'd like to see me host the show with. Anyone from the league, yeah, if you suggest them, I'll ask them to see if they're available. And that's pretty much going to be that. I will see all of you next week. Thank you for watching the Unofficial Commentators. And follow our content on YouTube, Unofficial Commentators, Facebook, Unofficial Commentators. Check out my waiver picks on @Unofficial Commentators on Instagram. And we're at UC_podcast on Twitter. Basically get the heads up on some of these waivers as well as when the show comes out. But you should already know that because you're subscribed and you click the notifications. The show drops right around noon every Thursday, including this Thanksgiving Thursday. So you'll probably be watching this show as you prepare for that Thanksgiving eating or cooking, whichever one you prefer. Guys, thank you for watching the show, and I will see you next week. Ba-dum-bum-bum.